We're headed back to Canon Films territory for some more Canon Films Christmas goodness. Let's do it. Hey, welcome back to my channel. Hope everyone is doing well out there. And today we're going to talk about another Canon Films production to go along with my Canon Films Christmas reviews. And none of these films have anything to do with Christmas. But I was just in the mood to go down to Canon Films catalog, at least some of it. I'm not going to do it all. But I was in the mood to watch the Death Wish franchise. I'm going to do Death Wish 5 next week. I have that coming in the mail. I bought the DVD because it's not available on Blu-ray. So I'm going to watch that. I haven't seen that in a long time. That's the one I like the least, but maybe my thoughts will change on it. And it has Michael Parks in it, so, I mean, he's always entertaining when he shows up on screen. And I haven't seen Murphy's Law in over a decade, and that's the movie we're going to talk about today. I like this film. I saw it many times as a younger man. And I just haven't seen it in over 10 years. At least 10 years I haven't seen this film. And I really wanted to do it. And I got a request for it. I'm like, you know what? I really want to watch it. So I bought it on iTunes. It's available on digital. So I bought it because it's a movie I always enjoyed. I didn't know how I'd feel about it now, but we're going to get into that. Murphy's Law was a script that was around for a while that Charles Bronson really liked. And it was written by a friend of his, Gail Morgan Hickman, who wrote The Enforcer for Clint Eastwood. And then he wrote Death Wish 4 for Charles Bronson. They were good friends around this time. Because the next year they made Death Wish 4 with the director of this film, J. Lee Thompson. This is actually the 6th out of 9 collaborations between J. Lee Thompson and Charles Bronson. The next year he directed Death Wish 4 that got released in 1987, which I did a review for that last week. Canon Films actually liked the script for this film as well, but Canon Films was very frugal with their budgets, which is a polite way of saying cheap. Canon Films was cheap, and usually, like I said in one of my other reviews, that their budgets were usually between $2 and $10 million bucks. Now, later on, Cobra was a higher budgeted film, but that was a collaboration with Warner Brothers. Over the Top was a higher budgeted film, and then Superman 4 was a higher budgeted film, though they cut the production budget for that down right before production started, which you can tell because that movie is a dumpster fire of awfulness, but that's okay. So, anyway, back to this. This movie's rated R, as most Charles Bronson films were, except for Assassination, which came out a year after this. It was released April 18th of 1986. It was an hour and 40 minutes long, had a budget of $6 million, and upon release, it just made under $10 million. And like I said, J. Lee Thompson directed this film, and Charles Bronson plays Jack Murphy, and Kathleen Wilholt plays Arabella McGee. Now, you'll recognize her from Roadhouse. She was in that film with Patrick Swayze. And Carrie Snodgrass plays Joan Freeman, and she is our main bad guy. There's kind of two bad guys in this film, but she is our main one, and our most vicious and psychotic one of the film. The other is the Mafia, which Jack has had run-ins, we find out, during the film. And basically, this film gave Charles Bronson a little bit of a different... I mean, in the original Death Wish, he definitely played with the emotions of going through the grieving process. In this film, we see him play an older cop who's tired. He's about to go through a divorce. He's separated from his wife, and that weighs on him. And he doesn't get along with some of his fellow cops, although his partner, the one cop, he gets along with really well, who helps him out later in the film. And he's basically just going through the motions at this point. And at the beginning of the film, we see him running with Arabella McGee, and she's a car thief. And she's a motor mouth, too. Like, she just shoots off to people saying whatever comes into her head, calling them names, different names. And that's her way of dealing with people. It does get a little annoying with this character, the name calling, because it just comes off as cheesy at one point. But I like the relationship between her and Jack Murphy later on in the film. As her character changes and goes through her arc, I like her character way more later in the film than in the beginning. In the beginning, she's just obnoxious, basically asshole. Pretty much, that's what she is. But anyway, Jack Murphy's going through this divorce. He gets served with divorce papers. He's living in this little apartment in the basement of this home in L.A. And his ex-wife, soon-to-be ex-wife, is a dancer at this club. And they try to make it seem like it's a classier club, but really it's just a goddamn strip club, let's be honest. And he actually goes and watches her dance, which disgusts him to the nth degree. He watches her dance, and she does get partially nude. And she knows he's there. There's twice during this film when we see him go to the club and watch him. And he's drinking and watching this, and he's totally disgusted with the whole thing. And she'll come over, and they'll start talking. And he pisses her off because he basically says, you're just basically a common whore. That's what you look like up there. Why would you want to do that? And here his ex-wife, or soon-to-be ex-wife, is dating the club owner, which really pisses him off. And he even follows her home a couple times. The second time he follows her home, bites him in the ass, but he doesn't know that. And then we're introduced to Joan Freeman. She has a meeting with a private detective, and he finds a bunch of addresses for her. And he kind of tries to strong her for more money. Well, she ends up executing him before he gets any money. So it didn't do him any good. It just pissed her off. And this woman's a complete psychotic, but a pretty damn smart one, because she sets up Jack Murphy, and we're going to talk about that in a second. And she's a very vicious, violent psychopath. No doubt she does not give a shit who she has to kill as long as she gets revenge on Jack Murphy, as we come to find out. And she starts killing people. And she sets up Jack Murphy. The second time he follows his ex-wife home, it's raining out, and she knocks him out in his car, uses his gun to kill his ex-wife and her boyfriend, and then drives him back to his place. He wakes up the next morning in his car, and he doesn't think much of it because he has a tendency to get drunk and pass out, and his gun's in his holster. He goes in his apartment, the cops show up, especially this one cop that doesn't like him, and they arrest him because they think it's him, because a neighbor saw his car driving away right after the shooting, and they think they got him dead to rights. And they put him in lockup, and they handcuff him to Arabella, because she's in lockup because Jack had arrested her the day before for car theft. And he breaks out and takes Arabella with him because they have no choice. They're handcuffed together. He doesn't have the keys, and they take off, and are on the run. And she hates Jack, and Jack doesn't like her either. And they end up going to an old friend of his house, which is the cabin from Friday the 13th, Part 4, the final chapter. And they hang out there for a few days. And over this time, we see Arabella start to like Jack, soften towards Jack. Like her rigid edges start to soften. And Jack even starts to soften towards her. And they end up leaving his friend behind to go. They think it's the mafia that set Jack up, because Jack has had run-ins with the mafia, put a couple of them away. And Jack even shot the mob boss's brother and killed him because he went nuts at the airport and started shooting people. So they go and visit this mob boss's penthouse apartment, and he beats the shit out of him, but he doesn't know anything. He doesn't know that Joan's the one that's doing all the killing, that set him up. But eventually he pieces it together. He goes to his partner's apartment, and they hang out there for a few days. And he has him run some names of people that he had arrested over the last 10 years that may have gotten out on parole. And his partner calls him, and she's the last name on the list. And he felt it was unlikely, but and Jack's like, she shouldn't be out. I mean, she should be away for a long time. He goes, no, she got paroled a couple months ago, and she's living in a hotel in L.A. And basically, we have our final confrontation in the Bradbury Building in downtown LA. It's a very iconic building. It was in Blade Runner. And the last 10-15 minutes takes place there, and we have we have a shootout. We have Jones killing people with a crossbow. We even think Arabella gets killed because she gets shot in the back with a crossbow, and Jack finally kills Joan. And at the end of the film, we find out that Arabella is not dead, and her and Jack are in an ambulance getting taken to the hospital, and that's the end of Murphy's Law. This is actually a very underrated Charles Bronson film. It's a very good thriller with some comedic elements, and there's some action elements, no doubt. There are shootouts and people get killed, but it's more of a thriller than it is a straight-up action movie. And Charles Bronson's fabulous in this film. I mean, he's good with what he's playing, like this older cop that's tired. He's going through divorce, that he's disgusted by his ex-wife, but he wants to keep her in his life, and it's just a good performance by Bronson. And Kathleen Wilholt's performance is really well, especially later on towards the film when they start liking each other and have an understanding, and she softens towards him and she becomes less annoying and obnoxious. I really like her, and Carrie Snodgrass is really fantastic as a psychopathic killer. It's a really well done, violent thriller, and Charles Bronson's fantastic. It's well directed by J. Lee Thompson. It's very workmanlike direction, but very efficient, and I really like this film. It actually, seeing it all these years later for the first time in a long time, I really appreciated this film, and I really enjoyed it. A little bit more trivia: Jill Ireland, Charles Bronson's wife, actually produced this film. Actually, they wanted her to be in the film, but she wasn't. She was going through some cancer. She had cancer at the time, and she didn't want to act in a film, so she just produced the film. But yeah, I really like Murphy's Law. I would give Murphy's Law an 8 out of 10. I think it's a really solid thriller that was produced by Cannon. It's one of their better films, I think. Well put together. 8 out of 10 for Murphy's Law. Have you ever seen Murphy's Law? Leave a comment down below. Let me know. Hit the thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, share this video. I greatly appreciate it. I'll be back next week with some more reviews. Until then, take care. I'll see you later.